Don't worry, I'm just checking out the state of the game. Although it might seem fine on the surface, there's a lot of issues there. And that's not one of them, but there's a lot of things, there's a lot of problems with the game. It didn't learn from the mistakes of Overwatch. It just took Overwatch's mistakes for itself. And no, I'm not talking about the fan service. That's honestly probably one of the only good things that it took. I mean, there's a lot of money to be made in fan service. Not gonna say I don't like it. I don't buy any of the skins, but I don't think it's all that bad for the game. You see, Marvel Rivals is pretty much the exact same game as Overwatch, let's be real. I mean, they've got different characters, at least different names for characters, and then some different characters, right? But at the end of the day, they're very similar. And I don't think that's all that bad, I think that there's a lot of good games which took great ideas from other games, and then they improved them. And that's the problem with Marvel Rivals, is I really don't see any improvement here. In fact, I just see a lot of the same problems taken from Overwatch. And in some cases, they're even worse. Overwatch learned from their mistakes and made improvements. And then Marvel Rivals, for some reason, decided to go back to those old mistakes. Now, let's take a look at these clips here. Do you see any problem with them? I want you to look closely and tell me, are there any problems here? Do you see any problems? No? You can't tell? You can't even tell what's going on? Yeah, that's the problem. There's so much shit everywhere. It's so difficult to tell any of the projectiles and like what's going on in the game. There's so many ults going off, so many different abilities. It's a clusterfuck. It's difficult to tell what's going on. It was a really big problem for Overwatch as a spectator sport. Overwatch really wanted to get into the esports scene, and one of its biggest problems was that it was really difficult for outsiders to watch the game. They couldn't really get a mainstream audience because people who didn't play the game couldn't really tell what was going on. The only people who can really tell what's going on in Overwatch are people who've played a lot. And this is even worse in Marvel Rivals. This is somewhat helped in Overwatch's case by their less detailed graphics, as well as their switch to 5v5 later in the game. Now, let's see, Marvel Rivals has definitely not learned from this. They decided to go off the bat with 6v6, and then ults charge so quickly that they're going off all of the time, which, I mean, half these ults, I still don't know what they do. They just go off and I'm like, okay, I just heard somebody scream a big voice line. I'm gonna run away now. And the graphics are less clear. I don't know, I can't pinpoint exactly what the cause is, but Marvel Rivals for me is so difficult to like tell what projectiles I need to avoid or what's like enemy or friendly projectiles. Sometimes I literally turn around and look at my team because I think that the friendly behind me firing projectiles is actually an enemy because they look very similar and it's very difficult to tell apart. I just can't imagine how bad this game would be as like a spectator sport. There would be nobody who'd understand what's going on if they don't play the game. It's so infuriatingly difficult to understand. This is just a little nitpick, and maybe this one's just me, but why can't they just name the categories of the characters something simple? Why they gotta be Vanguard, Duelist, Strategist? Can't they just go with the normal tank, DPS, attacker, and support or healer? Why they gotta make these names all weird? I just want it to be simple. I think I've been calling the DPS in this game Vanguards for like the whole time I've been playing it. I only learned that like yesterday, that was the wrong name, that's not what they're called. I felt like such a dumbass, but even more than that, I was pissed off at the game for not just making it simple. Is that so much to ask for? And then we get to game balance. The game balance is atrocious in Marvel Rivals. Let's start off with the main point, healers. I hate the healers in this game. Why? Why do they heal so much? It feels so pointless sometimes. I swear to God, half the matches just turn into just us spamming a choke point and waiting until somebody gets an ult, which then dominates the rest. It's so infuriating that it's difficult to kill anything through the support healing. They're just so strong, and a lot of enemies are difficult to hit already. Like, there's so many movement abilities, and there's so many ways that damage can be avoided. It gets really infuriating sometimes. And this healing problem is compounded by the fact that they decided to go with 6v6, which Overwatch learned that wasn't a good idea. They decided to switch to 5v5, which made things a lot clearer, and it made it a lot easier to kill things. And you didn't have goats. We don't want goats 2 here, which I guess is gonna be a 3 support, 3 tank meta. Maybe it won't be 3 tanks, but it will be 3 supports. The supports are so overpowered that it's just gonna happen. Another problem is just the over-reliance on ults. Like, you get ults so quickly in this game with some of the characters. Some of the ults are game-winning, and others are completely useless. And that basically decides how good the character is. Because ults decide the game. You're just gonna be stuck holding the payload or holding a point until one of the team gets their ult first, and they're gonna pop it and just win. It's just so infuriating. I want just like your base understanding and like ability to play a character well to be a deciding factor in winning or losing a match. Which leads me on to my next point, which it's more of a criticism of these types of games in general. You feel like you don't contribute anything to the game, that you as an individual can't really do much, and you have no effectiveness on the outcome of the game. Like, you can be having the best game of your life and be absolutely destroying and still get crushed by the enemy team. Or you can be absolute dog shit and be a 2-ton backpack on top of your teammates and still win. Like, it doesn't feel like you contribute all that much to the outcome of a game. And as an individual, you just aren't that effective. A more minor criticism is just like the similarities between some of the characters in Overwatch and Marvel Rivals. Like, we already know you took the game design from Overwatch. You didn't have to take like half of the character roster too. It feels so weird playing the game and just being like, oh yeah, that's Winston's ability, or that's just like Hanzo. No, that's Widowmaker. Why couldn't they just make the characters like play differently? It's not that important. It's more just like, it'd be nice to have a bit more uniqueness to the game, and it would help the enjoyment. I think it'd really make it a bit more fresh if they didn't have such similar characters and abilities to Overwatch, but it's not too important. And then the final thing to discuss has to be cheaters. I don't know what is going on, but it feels like half of my matches I get in, there's cheaters on the enemy team. When I die sometimes, the kill cams are so absurd. This dude's just like locking head, body, and just drops me immediately, and then goes on to the next person and starts dropping them. It seems so obvious. I guess it's possible it could be like a hard aim locking controller, but it's just so strong that it seems like it's probably aim locked. Plus, their movements or their aiming doesn't look like it's slow enough to be controller. Like, it seems like it skips too fast and then it starts locking onto somebody. I was so frustrated trying to unlock competitive in this game because I was just getting cheaters all the time in quick play. I was so frustrated. I kept playing like a game or two, getting a cheater like every time, and then just quitting the game. I swear I only won like 3 games before I got into competitive, which finally kind of solved it. There's still some cheaters going into competitive, which is very annoying, yes, but it's not as bad as quick play was. Quick play was infuriating and made me not want to play it. Let's be real, I'm still addicted to competitive games. These things just frustrate me about the game. Oh, by the way, I have a Discord that you should check out. It's got nobody there yet, but you can establish a claim and then make a faction and dominate the server before anyone else gets there, you know? Hope you enjoyed my little yap session, and if you don't agree with me, you're wrong.